Facebook right now, and we are recording. So I just want to say good afternoon to everyone who's on the call. I am Dana Dennis. I'm a community organizer with the Riders Alliance. We are a grassroots organization made up of transit riders from all across New York City. Together, we fight for better transit. That means that we want to have a transportation system that is more affordable, reliable, and of course, accessible for all New Yorkers. On June 5th, the MTA released their 13-point action plan. This was to coincide with the 4-phase reopening of New York City. In that plan, they included some ways that the MTA is going to keep New York City riders, safe. And we at Riders Alliance viewed it along with some of the riders that are volunteering with us, and they believe that there's a few things missing from the plan. We have a few amendments we want to make. So today we're hosting this briefing in hopes that the MTA will adopt their plan and also change what we're looking at. Riders across the city are all wondering how their commute is going to be affected by this pandemic. They're thinking about what it means for when they get back to work, to school, and how we're going to keep them safe in that process. And so recently, Riders Alliance surveyed close to 1,000 New Yorkers. Many of them expressed those concerns that they have. You know, things about getting back to the office, crowds on the platform, how do they keep themselves safe throughout their various appointments. So today we're going to hear from a few of those members of the Riders Alliance. We have Elizabeth, Kevin, and Rachel who are all going to join us. In just a few moments, they're going to share their personal concerns, which are similar to those that we keep hearing throughout the survey and from riders that we receive emails from. And then we're going to take questions from the press that has also joined us at the end of the presentation. If you have questions and you're on, whether you're joining us live on Facebook or on the actual briefing, feel free to put them in the chat. We have a staff member who's also on for social media, and they will be responding to you. And so I encourage you to ask as many questions as you have, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them all. With that, I will pass it on to Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana, for your introduction. I'm happy to be here today. Like most New York City residents, I rely on public transportation to participate in the life and economy of New York City, where over 9 million people are on public transportation every single day. We rely on transit to get to work, to get to medical appointments, and to help keep our economy moving. New York City makes up 10% of this nation's GDP, and that is only possible because of a transportation system that moves millions of people each day. While the governor frequently downplays this, the MTA is a state-run agency and the governor controls it. He appoints the chairman, he decides their budget, and he decides their priorities. Earlier this month, the MTA released a 13-point action plan for a safe return, but riders know that a few key things are missing from that plan that we will need to get New York City back on track as safely as possible. The MTA is not meeting riders' needs as the city reopens, and Mr. Governor, we do blame you. So what can you do to help get New York City back on track? You can restore 24/7 service, cancel the planned expansion of the police force, and reallocate those funds to increase off-peak service. Even with New York City on pause, there were 11,000 riders taking transit between the hours of 1 and 5 a.m. to reach their essential jobs. Now the city is in phase 2, and this number has been increasing consistently. We already have over 2 million riders a day on transit. As our barbershop and salon owners, construction workers, retail stock workers, and restaurant staff head back to work, these folks and our essential workers need 24/7 service to get to their destinations. Contrary to the governor's talking points, the subway does not need to be shut down overnight to be kept clean. In their newly released report, Back on Board, the Tri-State Transportation Campaign presented a number of options for keeping trains clean and in service, including electrostatic sprayers, which are, quote, useful for quick turnaround times, such as during layover times for buses and trains. We are calling on the governor to restore 24/7 service by the time we get to phase 4 at the latest. At the height of the pandemic, ridership was down 75%, and revenue was down 90%. This has cost the MTA $8 billion in operating costs, as fares make up 40% of the MTA's budget. Last week, Chairman Pat Foy announced at the MTA board meeting that the MTA will run out of money by the end of August and will be forced to cut service. Now is not the time to invest $249 million in additional cops, especially when this cost grows each year as cops get raises and bonuses. Cops are a bad investment now, and the budgetary consequences will be felt for years as the MTA recovers from this crisis. Riders don't want additional cops. What riders want is to be able to return to transit without worrying about crowding on trains and platforms. Governor Cuomo can reduce crowds and wait times during off-peak service by using that $249 million to add 15% more service during off-peak hours. Governor Cuomo, we demand you implement these changes by the time we get to phase 4 of the reopening. Riders need you to restore 24/7 service, cancel the expansion of the police force, and increase off-peak service. We have some riders here who'd like to share with you why you must provide just service for New York. Riders who would like to add their voice to this call can text Cuomo to 52886 to demand just service. I will now hand it over to my fellow rider, Rachel. Thank you.
Hi. While I'm looking forward to phase 4 of our reopening, I'm also concerned about the diminished service and the impending inundation of transit police. 24-hour and increased service needs to be fully restored to ensure New Yorkers who are essential workers or who work non-traditional hours like myself can travel back and forth, so that we may effectively social distance and not be forced to risk infection by boarding an overcrowded train. The $249 million slated for transit police is an unnecessary expense at this time. Instead, I ask you to invest in our safety and the promise of efficient, reliable service we deserve. Service which optimizes the transit officers already working within the system and makes social distancing possible. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin and I'm a Riders Alliance member. And when I commute, I normally commute from Bay Ridge in Brooklyn to my job in the financial district at a cultural institution or another job I have in downtown Brooklyn. As we approach phase 4 of reopening, I think it's very important that we expand our service, including overnight service. Before the pandemic, it was very common for me to wait at 59th Street in Brooklyn to transfer to the R for 25 or 30 minutes during off-peak hours, only to find a totally cramped train arrive. As we approach phase 4, and knowing what we know about the importance of social distancing, it will be important to run frequent trains to avoid overcrowding so that we can maintain a safe distance from each other during the pandemic. As we move forward with reopening, I think that it's very important to maintain efficient and frequent service on our subways, including overnight.
Thank you again, Elizabeth, Rachel, and Kevin, for sharing your concerns with us all. Governor Cuomo, I hope that you heard us today and heard the writers as well. For you to truly reopen New York City in a safe manner, it means that riders must have access to frequent service, faster buses, and of course, fewer cops within our transportation system. Thank you. Okay, and with that, I am actually going to take questions at this time. I thank you all for joining us. I'm not able to see the chat, but do we have any questions in the chat that were asked already, Jorge? If not, we can go to live questions. If you all can use the raise your hand feature or however is needed.
No questions on Facebook. I think you can go to live questions.
Okay, we will take live questions at this time.
Hey everybody, thanks for doing this. Yesterday, you might have seen the governor said we will restore 24/7 service when we don't need to disinfect the trains anymore. But the MTA has been saying, oh, riders love these new totally clean trains all the time. I mean, is it time to stop doing the overnight disinfections in order to restore this service? And what's your response to an MTA? The MTA's claim that 70% of riders love this, and we haven't had any problems with overnight bus service yet.
Danny Pearlstein, who's our communications director. Danny, you're on the call. Can I ask you to take this one?
Sure, of course. Hi, Dave. How are you? You know, I think that as Elizabeth cited in the Tri-State report, the disinfection is a significant part for show. And what riders need is genuine focus on actual measurable safety enhancements. And what we're hearing on this call from Elizabeth, Rachel, and Kevin is that more frequent service that will ease crowding is the key to genuinely making riders safer. And that cosmetic improvements like power washing the exterior of trains overnight doesn't contribute to that. It's an image versus reality question. And for folks actually taking and using the subway, more space is paramount.
Thank you, Danny. So do we have any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, with that, I thank everyone for joining us. Again, for those of you who are watching live, we will try to get to your questions that you joined or that you added. Thank you.